So what we did was we added in some down here, and what I will highlight and live beyond many of them. We updated city elections. 90 years, we had some expiration, but we figured it would be best to then have it with the election year. But in really ensuring compliance with state and federal laws and clarifying that again, city elections are not partisan, so they're competitive. And please, at any point, if I'm going to that doctor, that's not because I'm a politician. One of the things that I'll note on this one is that the election commission was previously our city treasurer, our city attorney, I believe so those three positions. We said that really doesn't give a lot of ability for citizens to be involved. That kind of looks a little bit skewed in some ways in terms of a lot of people. So what we added was we added the addition of 2 residents to be appointed by the city council, as well as a city staff member appointed by the mayor instead of the city. That's not saying they the city attorney, they can engage council, but we thought that would even it out a little bit differently being resident feedback. What that leaves is the city treasurer and city clerk are still involved. The clerk will serve as that chair. And they do have the ability to hire assistants, inspectors, personnel, whatever they need to do to kind of get that thing done, especially the law. There were some challenges in this last time, kind of a long process. We wanted to make sure that was up to for fairness of our election. We also updated organization meeting pieces, which I actually will preface. Yeah, that's the next. Okay, I updated that signal. Updating transfers to property and contract. Sold without approval with council. Contracts need council approval if funds are inefficient, particularly. We did add a piece in on parklands that cannot be sold without election majority vote, including public parks, public recreation areas. There was a lot of conversations we had with folks that they really wanted to make sure that our land was protected, so we wanted to enhance that. Enhancing resident involvement in property decisions, and then removing exception. It was an exception. It talked about minor property, and our attorney doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of pieces that we talked about on that, so we got rid of that. In the effort of making this again current, we do not own the hospital anymore. I still work out of that one, so not at it, but out of it. And so we removed that to make sure that it again reflected current.
And just to clarify, just because we removed the official city hospital charter does not mean it can't get back added at a certain point in time, when or if the city officially establishes a city hospital again. This is just to reflect present time and future generations, but there is always an opportunity to add it back.
Department heads, that is another area that we looked at. So we modified language to broaden to department heads. Again, some of this is a bit minuscule, but we all know that the charter is important to reflect pieces, right? So by all means, it's minuscule to life, but it's important as we move as a city, right? In our current city structure, most of those folks are managers who are running the we also brought in assessment services, so we appoint a city assessor or contract for assessment services. So we broadened it, right, to allow additional flexibility. But I think in any of those departments, what we really noted was we're broadening it, but it still allows us to have our own. Right? So I think we thought that was important to say contract for services, or we can have our own. So there is no limitation for what because we know that the city is going to manage it. So that's I think important to know, right? Is that there's options. Our current charter just says we operate it by that department of, and that's not necessarily how we're operating. That is the point around the fire department, right? So while we're looking at pieces, we wanted to make sure that we updated it to reflect where we're at with some opportunities for future growth. So we said city is really mandated to provide fire protection services. We have the option to establish a fire department within our executive branch as needed. Of course, that fire chief operates under the mayor's supervision, and then it permits contracting with those external agencies, which we are already doing, right, with Waterford, but now it allows us that. It says that. It doesn't say that we're only going to have one. It allows you to either end. So we can. Operating, of course, contract county sheriff, and so potential establishment, again, it still allows that establishment internal if we'd like to, but provide. And so what we did was we said that the mayor has to submit a budget proposal every fiscal year. So we should be having these discussions a little bit now. That allows us for additional pieces. Of course, the budget must be balanced. There's no excess accounts within 180 days of each fiscal year. So we thought that was best practice, having an additional audit as a requirement. The city attorney, of course, actually we do have an internal city attorney now, so this is a little. This allows us the ability to contract or have an internal city attorney. And this is a great example of how there's that flexibility. Using responsibilities with a bit of clarity on language based on things that we've seen happen in the past. And so we said that they are drafting and reviewing contracts. It doesn't mean that if it goes to the city attorney that if they don't do it, then it doesn't pass, right? So that's what I think is important. And I know I'd be like, what did they talk about 10 minutes ago?
Just because it's being recorded, we want to make sure everybody can hear. Matter of fact, no, I'm saying you.
But you gotta get through all those people.
Just for the audience. Push that down when you speak.
Thank you.
Are you going through this, and I'm looking at your proposal, your presentation. I'm going to slow it down so that we can go through this, because I was looking through the point, and I was just making some correspondence so I can.
Yeah, please.
Is to understand this so that there will be no this.
Thank you.
Now, another thing, the council will now meet twice a month instead of every week,
Yes.
every single week of the month.
Yeah, just want to note that the Pontiac.
Believe
But
that.
people are gonna ask that, you know what I'm saying, they're gonna ask, also not.
Go ahead, Jose.
And just to reassure, to your point, it also does include that we did update the meetings in the mailer that will be sent out to the community of Pontiac.
Perfect. Great. Thank you for your comments and your clarity. I think on that it seems that, talking with our attorney and talking with the department, that was a good piece. I think what we did change was that taxes are payable without penalty. Before it was just July. So we added in the August piece. So we added some pieces on that, some publishing pieces. So we wanted to make sure that there was. We restructured some of the personnel matters chapter, and really I think, we had affirmative action here for opportunity, making sure that we're talking around the equal those pieces at the city. We did add in some conflict of interest hiring. We'll get into some broader conflict of interest pieces as we move along, but we wanted to note that. So that was some of our kind of updating the charter. Here's some things. The charter has nothing in it focused on ethics, focused on transparency, focused on any of those pieces. So my moral ground is a little strong sometimes, and I was like, we need to add some pieces in here. It's wild that we don't have anything in the charter that speaks to how we work as an ethical city, right? And so we added in a lot to these ethical standards that are required for every single person. So they apply to all city public servants. They prioritize public interest and prevent conflicts, and I think that's really what we are missing quite a bit, right? The maintenance of supporting city ordinances, some prohibitions and how they operate, rules to ensure transparency, integrity, and governance. And so there's a lot of pieces that focus on that.
On all these parts that you're adding, the ethics standards they are listed going to be.
Yep, and if you do want, we do have actually a red line version here, so if you had interest.
I just think the community's going to want to know what they are when you're saying prohibitions. So things like a public servant shall not willfully or in accordance with policies and procedures of the city. So there's a couple of examples of what that looks like. Some disclosure requirements. I think I had noted requirements. So things like any financial interest
right? In a product, in a contract, in a business, needs to be, and we don't have that as a city as a requirement. Now, we can rely on our people to pass rules for that, but we added that as requirements. In addition, that's for contractors and vendors. We think that's important that anybody working with the city needs some things like an award publicly presented. Okay, great. We know elected officials and other people get awarded. That's fine. So let me go back to that needed. But we did create lobbying, registration, and reporting. So, I cannot accept gifts for the most part, except for things like public service awards or informational materials, gifts from family, all that kind of stuff. We did create a 1-year post-employment prohibition, mostly sure that they were not immediately going from it, just like we've kind of been having a conversation like this on the federal level, where everybody becomes a lobbyist and does all this work. We wanted to create some time for people to have some room around that and get them away. So they're prohibited from lobbying or appearing before city bodies in some ways. All those kind of things. Or cannot join entities with past city business ties. So there's a lot of programs to make sure that there were some things in there on that. Created contracts voidable and rescindable, so contracts can be voided for undisclosed public service interests. So that's, I think, another critical piece, right? So again, huge contractors can face fines for that. It's important that we note that. So not only is it on the city official side, tandem on that to make sure that they're being above board, right? There's also a lot of prohibitions in here around city campaign during work hours. City property use for campaigns is strictly forbidden, strictly forbidden, resource integrity. So that was really the intent around that, was making sure that our folks were not looking deeper into things. That is something that looks like it's on the public integrity officer, is the head of that department. It is amazing, right? Like, you're making money off of this. And I'm like, oh wow, right? Because that can ruin people's reputations. Whether that's a city, whether that's a contractor, whether that's whatever, right? So that was some intention around this, right? That's not fair for any one of these pieces.
So Scott, you kind of came up to me when I was trying to explain it. Very supportive of it. I think it's something that we time that we're in, and just period. So that part.
Yep, I'll do that. I'll be betting, my friend. So appointment, removal, term of office, and vacancy. So it is the public integrity officer is appointed for a 6-year term. And that requires a city council majority, but it also requires the mayor, and you have to have a 3/4 city council vote. So it cannot just be removed willy-nilly. Important piece that we noted in there. They are not, I will note, there is one thing that they are not subject to, they're going to do their job well. They need to make sure that they're not going to lose their job every 5 minutes. I would make a joke on the federal level right now. We wanted 5 years of experience in specific areas such as law enforcement, judiciary. So you're looking at someone who at least has some ability to understand how do you really investigate meaningfully? Right? Same conflict of interest rules that are in the charter. We really same conflict of interest rules that are in the charter. We really added in this to really keep that they can't go and then work for the city, right? Because then there's just that they can't go and then work for the city, right? Because then there's just a lot of different pieces that come into it. It's great that that was one of the things that they worked into the previous charter. But as we looked to the charter, we said, great that there's a board of ethics, but whose politics works? And so we said, there has to be someone else who's running this to say, what are the things we're doing? What are we working with the board of ethics on? That was a huge thing that we found before, was like, there was not a transition process, and so things were just and so there are some people with some personal stories on that, you can get with them, but that was thrown to the wind by someone who's getting out of elected office, right? So that's important. Go ahead.
Just about the fact that, I didn't know you give me the mic, Scott. But, well, it's really loud. Just to really emphasize, right now, if there's a conflict between the executive and legislative branch, all they're able to do is to go to court. And so that could be done by the integrity officer. It makes a huge difference and will potentially save the taxpayers a lot of money in the long run, because every time you pay a lawyer to go to court, you're paying at least $25,000 party. And the other part that I don't think Scott mentioned, I think he skipped over it, was a liaison between, come with a complaint against any elected official or any department head. It's up in this charter that I think is really beneficial, is they have to take that complaint and on what happened with that issue.
Scott, go back. And I want to add to it. It's also, it works on behalf of elected officials too. So people have, and it's not necessarily the community as it is maybe 2 or 3 people. It is good to have a person that once somebody comes up and, oh, the community said this, but it's good to have somebody that can say, as an elected official, that's very important to know that just as an elected, for you to have that protection. Thank you, sir.
So you just have to put your hand up.
A natural question is, who filled the gap in my mind yet of versus other things that we can do. So why should I support that?
If a situation comes up where there is individuals who to the school district, they want contracts, they don't really have all the qualifications, etc., but then they just want to, or council folks and things of that nature. And so if a person can be removed from their seat, if they're the person that's deemed to be responsible for not giving a contract illegally. Now, there's no recourse inside of you going to court, spending your own money and saying, I didn't do this as an elected official, or the person who's being accused of wanting the illegal contract. Having someone that you can go to and don't have, it just happened last night, but say, I don't know who the community is that you're accusing me of. I don't know X, Y, and Z. This person who is a complete, has their own, their own power. They don't work. That I can say, or the person who's the vendor contract can say, can you please just look up it and just clear our company's name, or could you look at it and clear my name as an elected official? So right now, I happen to be just a police officer, so if I retire in January, I don't have the same powers that I had last night. Last night, I can go put in a subpoena, I can go, look at, different, within my scope, right, because that's who I am. But if I'm just an everyday Mr. and Mrs. The vendor doesn't have that right, but that public integrity officer does. And so I know it's adding another line, which was finance obligation to a responsibility. And it just dawned on, prior to last night, it just dawned on me to say that you need that other person that is contracted by law, that has falsifying information, like that accountability. Unfortunately, we have those situations that happen here, and so it's just good to have that extra layer of a person to have a conversation and be able to dispel things quickly, where everything not always going to court, if that makes sense, and then on somebody's docket.
To Commissioner Gary's point, I just want to add the fact these two charter worked with the best angle. If everybody was doing what they were supposed to do, the charter that we had was pretty fine. But as you see, the city has never been able to recoup any money from those incidences because they only, I just remember with HUD, we had some houses that got demolished 5 or 6 years in an audit, where if you had somebody that's basically contract all the time, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that level, that note on contract compliance is also important. Like, again, I'll just speak to my own organization. We have a whole compliance department, and we have a budget way less. And so I think what I see is this is a prioritizing conversation. I'd rather have this role than an event person. Our city. I think at the end of the day, what we saw was 8 years of our city council and our mayor fighting, and this is not the first example, but one of many, right? We saw 8 years in court, right? And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into court and have questions answered. And that is not the way we should be operating as a city, and that has not happened, quite frankly, in form of government, that there is more conflict in the system, right? And so a lot of those other but if you do have a system that's like this, then you have to have a little bit more ability to have the citizens and the residents of the city an area, someone who they can all the time, that I'm like, well, that doesn't seem right, right? I just sound doing things with permitted things at their building, and the city came and shut it down. The city building person came and shut it down. Well, who do you go to? There are other things that go way deeper. If you don't have that relationship, your stuff gets shut down, right? Or things happen that you don't have any recourse for. You have your city council, yes, but there's more compliance in the system. It's an opportunity to really make sure that there's a contract compliance person. Right? If we get into another situation where we are kind of, they're good, they can figure out their stuff, but if we get it, we have an election next year. If we get back to a situation where our council and our mayor don't get along, I don't want our reputation happening in the city, and we need to have this protection now, so that when things start getting even messier, I've seen enough in my time here. Listen, I lived in Troy before this, and I said, they didn't really need that, right? Their biggest complaint was the sorry.
Will this person, and I think you're going to have to detail exactly what their duties and responsibilities will be, because happening here in the city with different people, departments, Commissioner Williams will know that people ask, well, the conflict between council and the mayor, like, I don't have to. Yes, you do. So I hope you explain what this new position will be, what their will include, and how they can address the rest. So many issues that were never ever told to the citizens. How it was done, what happened.
Preach that. Thank you.
And then I think how it could be supported too. I know it probably would start off as general fund, but there are grants for that. But then also, type of integrity officer over at the public library would be the same type of integrity officer over at the school district. So it's clearly to do an MOU to share some revenue, share expense of this particular person, and help them add another person to the office. So after certain that opportunity to be, involved in City Hall, doing that transition, doing that first year, and you see certain things, and when you're left without a transition, you just can't move. That's one thing, but then, you find out that, maybe the finance director ain't doing what the finance director is supposed to be doing. You can't even you're left in the general fund, and then you come and have a structural deficit. It's even more difficult because I think it's very important that, like you said, spell out what just having accountability across the board. So,
thank you. Y'all got places to be, I'm sure, but independence, and I think that goes back into some of the independent. We also know that people also make complaints or would off, right? And so we wanted to add in some immunity pieces on there and some confidentiality or retaliation type pieces. In there on that, but they also can't But then they also have, let's say I was investigated for, I have to be just like in the state of the law, right? Or let's say journalism in some ways, right? You got to go response, and you got to make sure to have that conversation. You got to make sure that they're included in any report, so that it's not just something going out that has no information. That investigative files are kept confidential. So while the raw reporting is there, they also keep that confidentiality within the pieces. Not everyone's separate budget. The compensation is determined by the local officers' compensation committee. City council is required to allocate annual substitute on that, and that it ensures their effective operation, right? We wanted to make sure that they didn't get hamstrung just because people don't like them, right? Their reports are publicly accessible, noting the company. They're authorized to hire consultative services for conflicts of interest that they need. They have pre-report consultation with. Again, that there's some protections for our folks and measures to ensure independence, transparency, and accountability. What I, again, think is good here is that it also works with the Board of Ethics. And so what we had added in here, again, was appointed by City Council, 2 members appointed by the mayor, and then 1 member appointed by the election. The selection involved applications, reviews, and interviews. So again, this is that ethics pieces here. Members there must be city residents. They must serve 5 years. For their eligibility, there are no current officials, recent candidates, or elected office holders. So again, creating that barrier. And then removal for cause after investigative board votes, conflicts of interest. So we added in a lot of provisions. There's just some rules and procedures on here. Again, of course, they're governed by the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Powers and duties. So collaborates with the Office of Public Integrity for annual report preparation. Trainings for city officials, so ensuring that all of our officials should be, and employees, quite frankly, should be getting ethics training every year. Direct supervision to our public integrity officer, and I think that's something that's important to note, right, is that as an independent body, they still need to be together. The city will again annually go through that office and will be in accordance to enable their duties.
If you're outside and flying in here and looking at our city and the extensive language that we need to have this in Pontiac. I mean, no other city would do it, but it is a day. And I hope that it will serve, as you're saying, the will.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just in closing my comment, I've been a member, and the school is so much more important for our school, and very few people go to the school, but everybody comes to the remedy that is, so whatever you do, good luck.
Appreciate that, Rick.
Municipalities in order to create what we have in our charter.
And who was offered to go through that city's police department, who's the liaison between the municipality, the municipality. They don't call it that, they just call it a liaison officer. But that person pretty much is. So they do say, in the smaller communities around, used them and worked out well. But I get your point to the naming of it, but at some that we should, thought we may need them, and then some of those other going out just filtering questions and so forth will be more of their job than just investigating small claims or larger ones. So that's my hope and desire.
And Scott. Organizations, they are called also compliance officers. And anytime that you have funds coming in to any organization, whether it's nonprofit, someone needs to be in compliance. Someone needs to be, and if other organizations and other cities don't have on them.
They have the compliance piece, but we don't even have that necessarily worked right. So I get your point. I appreciate you for process on that one a little bit. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. So our next piece that we wanted to highlight was really with balance. That's most important. And so, you know, the legislative, I know that the previous charter had all districts, 7 districts suck or whatever, we wanted to give the residents, right, someone not always communicative. What?
Yeah, the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, not Brett, sorry. But I would see additional opportunities for our residents to have the representation that they need. And so having an at-large seat with someone allows them additional representation. And so that was our goal.
One of the conversations about that at-large seat is it gives community policing, or you working in just an overall trying to get something done in the community, and you can't with the particular city. One of the previous basically brought up the point of saying, well, this person could be, try to be combative. I said, well, the difference is the mayor has the opportunity to run the city. This at-large person, he has to be, or she has to be responsible. No, you have to be actively involved and say, okay, District 1, what do you have? District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, and then turn a community liaison who's worked in all 7 districts. They all act as certain things that come up in an individual community, because the community is just saying, what is council overall? And then it's good for council to be a very long, I wouldn't say long and drawn out, but if you have somebody who's an at-large person, you could have stepped in and said, okay, now I'm going to be able to have some questions and be able to, filter questions from residents. At the time, he had like 3 different things going on in his district, and there that kind of took away some of the time to pass that on to his teammate. So it works 2 ways. So that's why opponents and supporters of that at-large space.
Yes. Period, knowing that we have elections coming, we added in some provisions to kind of protect, make sure that our current council people are taken care of in their current seats for now, right? So we kind of added in some pieces just to make sure that there were some. They were mad. Go ahead, Ruth.
I'm very supportive. I was head of Lighthouse. That was part of District 1. I have no relationship to District 1. And Franklin, historic district. I don't feel anything, and I don't think the downtown people do either.
Right.
So I don't know how you. Big issue of the geographic area of District 2.
Yes.
Based on the census. But it's just.
It's an interesting phrase. Did you have a comment? Yes.
I can lay this down to, I guess I have to say, and if you're throwing in there a person that's going to flat, because like you said, District 1 is huge.
Right.
And everyone, definitely you better get into this and be able to explain it so that everyone can understand it clearly.
Excuse me, Mrs. Mayor. When you say explain, for example, what would you like to be explained that would have questions?
We don't have to put y'all on the spot, but if you have something, please.
The whole notion of having at-large representation is designed to give so now an actual representatives that he can call on for whatever was that we had 1 at-large and we had 6 districts. So basically you had your district representation, and if you're not finding candidate, so that was the whole idea behind
in a month or so. A wonderful job of organizing, terrible job of PR, of leading up to the vote. As you're saying, change, everyone has trouble with change.
Is because this board is of 9. Slim chance, big chance, little chance. We need to know, needs to be done as far as communicating this to know, and I'm pretty sure the other board, because we can't collectively, the community was saying, so if it, what aspect do you think we need to get, if you know of it?
Yes.
If you don't worry about it. I'm just saying because I would like.
If I may, I guess this topic, how was it when it was presented to you for the first time now? I would say.
Is one at-large seat. That one at-large seat, what would be their or to someone saying that I'm not represented out of the 7? Explain to them what is that one once, twice, going to be able to go to the district, the representative and say, you weren't at the meeting, particular position, and or just explain what that at-large means, because see, that at-large person doing, are they going to be paid to do this? Are they the full-time person? What this at-large position really means? What is the definition of that?
Sets you back a little bit with some concerns, just strictly on that title itself.
Maybe the wording is wrong, the title is wrong, but you're going to have to explain to the city community, why are you jumping over here to what's going on in my particular district? Why?
The other thing, tell the people how Pontiac has changed since 19. Will we? Do any of you know what the population was in '82?
Yeah, we had almost 100,000. So I think that's part of it. We do want to get to some of the other things in the charter, but just as far as the at-large visible district, a lot of people know where their lines is, but if you ask the majority of Pontiac citizens, they don't know what district. Call Kermit, that's what you're going to do. You're going to call Kermit Williams. We've always had people, we just didn't give them a title, and they just didn't know it. And that's what we've been dealing with for the longest. People on your ballot when you vote next year, if the charter passes. So you'll have your district person, let's say, you'll have an at-large person. So now you've got 2 representatives that you could potentially recall if things go bad, but you'll also, if a council person gets sick, who picks up those calls? Right now, those just flow to other district people who have, by default, you have that phone number already where you can call them and they're supposed to be responsive to your issue. So at large, we got to remember that all 7 council people right now are part-time. Many of them have 3 or 4 jobs after you have your day job. That's just human nature. You're going to do the job person as one as the council president gives the citizens an opportunity from 9 to 5 to have somebody on the clock doing the business of the city. Right now, we just had a Lancaster meeting in this very room 2 weeks ago. Pastor Parker has been at all to take off his day job just to come to those meetings. There's nobody in the city to do that. And then on the opposite side, you have a full administration with staff that's able to do these things between 9 to 5 and have a full-time mayor. The mayor is an at-large position, right? And everybody from the city gives them questions, concerns, or things they need to do. No, the mayor can't be in every place. but we don't have that same option in any shape, form, or fashion on the council at this current time with the 1982 charter.
So, Chair, my question would be then, is there any way, well, who, at this point, because it's in the charter, right? And who sets the definition? Because how I explain it as I know it to operate just by going to every council meeting or in every district, being familiar with every district. So who sets the definition to what that person does? Because I think, I'm saying, you say that's a very good question of just, if we could just, who sets the definition of, or terms to what that person does, then we can begin to explain that.
May I mention another thing?
Yes.
I was planning to go on till 10 o'clock to do this job. I mean, you may not, but you may you know what I'm trying to say. You know, it's going to take longer than you had planned. That was my point.
Okay.
And so how do you, between now and the election, how do you really plan for this? We want to help you be successful on it. I'm going to go back to one other topic, the assessment of taxes. You only talk about property tax. There's also the 1% or whatever that people pay who don't live in Pontiac. Whatever that is, you should look at that. And we're one of the only cities, most cities balance their budget with property taxes being the number one thing. And we are
State statute, cities that are over 50,000 with certain pay 1%. If you work in the city of Pontiac but live elsewhere, you pay. Worked in the city of Detroit but lived somewhere else, you would pay 1%. Only certain cities over 50,000 population are able to do as far as income tax. That is a state law, so that we could not do anything with that in the charter.
Or how it's done, and then they see it, and they're already talking 2 weeks away. Nobody, you don't see anybody coming in here and they're talking about even read it. They just went by word of mouth. And we're gonna have a big problem again, passing this. But there are some people, you gotta be so clear, it's almost the water is just, what you're saying, because if somebody's already told me it's not good, okay, I'm not voting for it. I'm not trying to be the dumb. You don't get this straight in Pontiac. This is a little unique town. Y'all know that. If you don't come with some specifics, somebody will blow it up when they come to council meeting or come here. And you only got a few. And everybody thought this was going to be in November, not August, and a little bit more time, but it's not. So when you come to this and you're talking pay a full-time person, how we lose or how we gain, and what Commissioner Williams was saying, I might understand, but somebody sitting next to me gonna tell me, what is this? Because they ain't have a clue. I'm just being real. If you want to get something passed in Pontiac, you have better make sure the little person as well as the big person understand exactly what you're saying. Because some people have already sabotaged it already.
Absolutely. So,
I can't make it more clear.
So I'm gonna go back to my question. So the definition of the at-large district, and I'm just saying, can we just start defining that when we have the conversation? Or is that something that's defined once that position is created?
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Gary.
Yeah.
But you know as an elected official that just because you have the title of elected official does not necessarily make all of them created equal, right?
Correct.
So the job description for that person at large is they're elected by the general at-large public. That's the definition. So that depending on who takes that seat is going to determine how useful, how effective, and how helpful they are. I get what you're saying. We should say they should do X, Y, and Z, but that's not what's in the charter or even in the mandate of a city council person. We have city council people that do a phenomenal job, who show up for the residents, make good legislation and order packet, don't show up to meetings consistently, don't see anybody in their neighborhoods, and they're still representative government.
And that's, I mean, he gave me the answer that I needed. So, I mean, just as I'm speaking to it as a commissioner, what I would like it, because that's how I've been describing it, and as well as the public integrity office. These are the top three things. And the public integrity officer is what I've been getting over the last, since we started. So that's, you answered it for me. I'm gonna continue where I'm going because I get positive feedback from that. But you know, we'll cross that other bridge of what they should be doing once the person gets
there. Yeah, and I think we can have some additional conversation on it. I do want to move us if possible, but I'll
just one thing. Thank you, Ms. Spam,
for
answering my.
Thank you. I think one thing that I'll just jump amazing points, and what I wanted to really highlight real quick is one area that we added in. Right, this commission can only be elected for a certain period of time, all that stuff. So we know, right, that y'all are gonna say, oh God, I might not like that at all. Or we have the opportunity to change things, right? Like, that's what I want to highlight. This is one thing that I wanted to make sure that we added in. What's happened is there's no one looking at this, like, we spent so much time looking at this and going, oh, on a regular basis. And so one thing that we added in here was a charter review board. And this is an informal board, not a formal charter commission, but an informal board that will get together immediately, and we require that it gets together immediately after we adopt this charter. And what they can do, they're a year-long group that will get together, and their goal is to recommend any additional changes that we might not have gotten to the city council. Because the only way to get anything else changed in a charter is for city council to recommend it to the voters. And so we wanted there to be an ongoing conversation on this, knowing that we ended up getting, again, a year cut off of our time, and that really was our community engagement time that we had to cut off. We had to get the charter in by January to the Attorney General. So we were cut off quite a bit, and unfortunately, this was something that we added in to make sure that this conversation happens, because I know that there may be things that, and so my hope is that yes, change is hard, and I know that. I know that people hate change, but my hope is that I keep lifting up that, like, there's opportunities for you to change this, and this is your next piece to do that, is making sure that this group gets together, and this allows an automatic piece for it to come together and recommend changes to the city council.
So I love that, Scott. Can you jump ahead to the big piece on enhancing resident voice and power? I think a lot of people hung up on the form of government, but we put a lot of cool things in this charter, make it more people-friendly, and that's not the big highlight because people just are used to city council. But if you can go through that, Scott, I think that would be phenomenal.
I was just wanting to say, thank you for bringing up the charter revision board, and I would hope that the community has a mindset like Rick to have the opportunity for this to pass, to trial the new revisions that we made. But there's always that opportunity to come back and review it and say, well, maybe that idea wasn't that good. Let's go ahead and remove it in the new revision. But we've never had that opportunity since 1982. For us to even try new things. So kudos to Rick for wanting to see the change happen, but to ensure your mindset, Rick, there's always an opportunity to remove the things that did not work.
Yeah. They may say, hey, I don't want a full person or whatever, right? That's okay.
I agree with Rick because what you're speaking to, if this committee after this, if it's passed and you recommend having a subcommittee later on, will they have the power to be able, like he's asking, if it's not needed or we need to replace it with something else, will they have the power to never talked about really in the sense of be able to change it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, something up on a ballot, but they don't. So this formalizes that they have to give the council a report, and then unfortunately, there's enough people who want something changed. Like, we got a lot of fighters in this city. Take that report and do that. So that's the one piece, right? It relies on our people. But that's, I think, what's so nice about this is that we knew that, you know, just like Rick, you said, it's like, I don't necessarily love this provision, but I don't hate it, right? Like, I'd love to keep that conversation going.
Next month, it's a PR.
Yes.
It's a PR thing, all, you know, and so I'm not sure how you do it. Spend on this.
Yeah.
The citizens need to know that it was just not willy-nilly.
Yep.
And so and what other outside influences did you in coming up with what you want to do? And you're recommending. So you got to do a PR. You got to lay the ground. Lay the ground. That would have been helpful tonight. That you spend $600 on this over 2 years. It's a PR thing.
Yeah.
And it's a month. You can't delay until November. Is that what you're telling me?
Unfortunately not. We are cut off in August. So us as a group are cut off in
And then
August.
the state looking at it, do they make any changes or do they just give their blessing?
They made a couple changes, yeah. So
So
they,
I think citizens need to know that.
Yeah.
And it met the muster.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah, those are great suggestions. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. So I'll cover this resident voice piece real quick. One of the things I added in was increasing our candidate nomination requirements for signatures. So right now it was some low amount. City council and mayor with like 2 people basically right, like that. So we really wanted to make sure that citizens were getting the people that. So we increased the number of signatures to run for office. Council at large has to get 250 to 400. And then council districts have to get at least 100 to 150 signatures. So to a level that we thought was realistic for those areas. And so that's one piece that we worked on. File a petition, you must collect signatures from not less than 10% of the registered electors in the preceding presidential election. People were putting things on with barely any people, or it was based on, I think, the last 10 people, based on those calculations. So we wanted to set requirements and really make sure that the citizens were being talked to in that. We created a whole board of engagement philosophy. That is, I think, what we wanted in this charter was that public engagement is not just an afterthought, it is crucial for government, right? And so we wanted to emphasize continued interaction over sporadic events. So we wanted things that we really needed, that we really thought were important. We wanted advocates for diverse things. It advocates for diverse engagement channels, both in person and online. It tools for enhanced public engagement. That's the philosophy of it. The establishment and purpose, again, we run into those boards and commissions to provide guidance in specific government areas. They're established through ordinance and aligned with charter provisions. And they cover areas like planning, arts, historical matters, parks and rec. We serve voluntarily, so there's some opportunities for reimbursement. To move. The composition of those is set by city council ordinance, but appointments are actually made to people who are in the neighborhoods, or city council people have different relationships as well to people who can be on these, and we wanted to evaluate. And then at least 51% of those members are appointed by the mayor. That is something that 4 years for those. They're staggered. Appointment eligibility typically requires city residency. Sorry, I went a little fast. And the boarding commissions, what are they kind of doing, right? City council, we've all seen our boards and commissions work, right? We have plenty of them, but we wanted to really formalize this, that they're serving in an advisory really, like talked about it all. So we wanted to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on, right? That was, I think, the biggest piece, is we really added a lot more on how the public is able to access information. And that was super critical that we worked through on most of these pieces. Board and commissions, where most of that work is done. Go ahead.
Where are you?
Yes, that is a good question.
What page are you on?
It's like more near the end. It's under the enhancing resident voice section. Sorry, I should have. Thank you. Yeah.
Meetings and procedures.
Yeah. You'll see some. It's up here, yeah. So I think those were important for this. We wanted to make sure that those boards and commissions were, again, that our citizens were able to see what's going on in these. Again, it goes back into some of that transparency, but it also goes back into making sure that our citizens are informed. We did, in some ways, to have some youth engagement, to really start thinking about our next leaders in the city. Right? I talked about the Charter Review Board, so I won't go through that extensively. Should I put that right there? That last section around. Cover the 4 goals. And again, we highlighted this quite a bit, but I really wanted to highlight this for the rest. Own of City Hospital. We do not have an established things that we are not operating in compliance with. And so how do you run a city when a weird thing that we've just been doing for quite a few years? Our other goal was developing that balance and equal power between the branches of government, which makes equal power for both of those branches, right? That both the city council and the mayor, the residents are taken care of. And that really is the reason why we focused on that. The very first thing that I would note is that there are not any ethics requirements in our current charter, and that leaves so much opportunity, and we've seen it in every administration. It doesn't even matter if you're talking about the last one. We've seen it in every administration. Something with the mayor, we've had weird conversations after each person going, what happened here? And so we have that ethics piece is so important, because it leaves it to the whims of people. That is the biggest difference. I think Herman said it earlier, was the current charter that we have anticipates that everyone is operating like angels, like do something wrong. And so there's no stopgaps, there's no requirements, there's no transparency. And so what this charter does is act as if people might make some, that they might have personal interests in things. And that is so critical to make sure that that doesn't happen. Because I do not want our residents to not be taken care of, and that's so important, I think, there. And then again, I think that to give the residents continued power in this charter. We wanted additional voice. We wanted to be engaged, and that is, I think, our final piece there.
All right, let's give it up for Scott Stewart. So next steps, right? What actually happens? We'll vote on the charter. If the charter passes, it will go to the county board of the state to be there. Serving currently will finish out their 4-year terms. I know a lot of people asking the question, if the charter passes, will that remove what we currently have? We won't have. Is if there are provisions that you don't like, the Charter Review Board is there to ensure you can further update it. So now we'll open. Colleagues, but I do want to say this. This was like 9 people making a piece. Different visions on where the city should go. We came to some consensus, and this is the charter that it came up with. It is not a perfect charter by any means, but it is 1,000% better than what we currently have. Where there was websites and other things, and it brings the charter up to date. And so that it even, but you can.
I said, no, to give you my question. With some of the citizens will be around, so they're gonna ask certain questions. I wanted, he's not gonna look at the prank when I've been here all my life. It's not gonna look at, change has to come. This has to be updated to reflect what is happening in our city right now. There is no doubt about that. And know that we cannot stay back there. We have got to go this way. So I'm hoping that it passes, and I will.
Anybody else with public comments? Okay. Any reports from our city?
We worked on a mailer as determined. It gives a very detailed, highlighted version of the presentation that was presented here today. That mailer will be sent out to the entire community. It's going to be the spark for people to inquire there is access to the Red Line Charter, as Commissioner Stewart explained, and other than that, so now the mailer to have it passed out. Anything else should we add about the outreach committee?
And we're still on that, and we do know that the community said that food definitely helps. So we have considered ice cream social at these meetings, taking ice cream socials to that. Concerts are in the park. And what we're hoping is that what the charter is all about. So we've added on a few more, and that was CDCs, district meetings, and neighborhood associations.
Familiar?
Thank you.
Central Cultural
Before we close out the outreach subcommittee, I would like to plan our next outreach subcommittee meeting. I'll yield.
I don't know what the, thank you, outreach committee. So again, there'll be a mailer in all of the mailboxes as a general committee. Meals on Wheels is on Saturday, so any of the commissioners want to talk to people about the charter, that will be appropriate time to do so.
I just went out to the post office today. Over the weekend, look out for them. Anyone who wants an 248-758-3200. Read a application, fill that out, send it back in to us. Mail you out an absentee ballot. Also, early voting is at the Pontiac line 758-3200. Good night.
I would just like to thank, first of all, residents for being here. Thank you. This was a challenge, and you were saying change. It is very difficult. The document that I think that is one of the best documents that I have seen is that you have to do the work. And everything in here is a guide involved in everything that goes on within the city, because charter does pass, because I really feel that it will bring.
Make sure people
Spinning things around in my head there, trying to figure out what it was I could say. And the first time it did pass, and this time I'm hopeful that it will pass. The it's still a process that a group of people go through in order to come together with an idea that they think is best for our city. But, you know, so 2 maybe that adds up to 6 years, I don't know. It's a lot of time. And sometimes I have to keep of our city trying to create a document that best reflects what we think is best in terms of a guideline for how we run things in our city. Obviously, you know, able to move forward into the future. So I think that it's a good doc, like recognizing our Bible, our book of rules. So that's how I feel about it.
All right. Commissioner Burr.
For a lot of your input. It's really appreciated. Well, thank you for being here with your input. 2 years, we, out of the kindness of our hearts, we didn't always agree on it, got it done. We did do some upgrades with hearing from us. Like you will be hearing from us. All that we ask is that you listen. That point was made earlier. Like we will, just because somebody else said something. So you will hear from us, the commissioners. We will be out in the community. We will be passing out literature. We will be having kind of.
All right, Commissioner Ybarra.
Thank you all for today's meeting. Great work, everybody on the commission. I do appreciate the citizens that spoke and provided their opinion, and I also appreciate them having an open mind. You know, there have been discussions with citizens who have explained that they are stern on not voting for the charter. You know, I don't think we would ever create the most perfect charter for everybody to agree on, and I'm hoping that people, once we educate the people, that there will be in this proposed charter revision after it's passed, there will be opportunity and what they need and to determine what doesn't work. But that can't happen if we never get the opportunity for it to pass in the first place. Please, you know, when we speak with you, if you're on one side or the other, to give us the opportunity to at least present it, and you still have disagreements with it, that's perfectly fine. As long as you tell the information that you were given to those people to make up their minds. Thank you so much. Have a great.
Praise to Allah, honor to the Prophet, honor to Miss Evelyn LaDuff, who always challenge a lot of the people that's in this here in Pontiac. Why are you for the charter and why aren't you for the charter? And you should have a resolution by reading it or at least listening enough to have an open mind. Because Pontiac needs to move forward. We have change. I know it's bothersome. I know it's difficult, but we keep expecting to indulge in researching the charter, researching Brian Killian, didn't get on this charter to make it Brian Killian charter, Kermit charter. Collectively together and talk to the citizens, different meetings, different outputs, and this is what we came up with. Best thing ever. For me, we put the best in it. Whether you think that or not is up to you. But at least I want y'all to take the time to study it. We don't have that much time. We really have to do a fantastic. I'd rather do a truthful and transparency marketing than a fake, I just want y'all to vote yes for. So I hope y'all hear me and, you know, just take the time. And I really appreciate you, Ms. Spann, giving your comments. They were very important because one that's out there in the community, you hear a lot of the good and the bad. So that's why I was asking, and I didn't mean to put you on, just wanted to know because I know you indulge a lot in the city. For you to tell us how to go forward was important to me because that's how we're going to have to move us forward in the city of Pontiac. So thank y'all on this committee and everybody that came out.
We've been able to do. I know I'll be turning 50 this year. And so being in this community since I was 19, but we've adapted to the changes. And so I do want to encourage the charter members and commissioners is that some people just talk, but they don't have that power. There's folks that just went down to city council and just immediately just said, we ain't passing this. But them the same people who haven't been reelected. So I'm gonna be specific about what I'm talking about. So when I see people like Gloria Spann come into a room, she can give me 300, 400 people just by walking in the room. So it's about a strategy and not necessarily just being truthful and not being intimidated by when somebody goes to a mic every week and say something. So I hear it and I say it and I said what I said. The charter will pass because we're truthful and we're honest and we got people to come in and get the information. You don't need 100 people in this room to tell you something about the charter. You just need the right 10 people that know about it. I think we got a lot of great information today. I think Mr. David shared some things that kind of exposed, shed some light. We have some great talking points that we now as individuals, that if I decide to say, okay, hey, Ms. Dawn, she's been out, she doesn't know she's coming out for business. I would want to get on a podcast with Ms. Dawn. Dawn, you heard what the charter is? Can we do a podcast together? That's it's simple things like that that's going to make this a different, I think a different turnout. Now, when we say, I've studied specifically for myself, studied why the charter didn't pass. It was council members who went through their council in their own individual council districts to go and say, no, your council person don't want to pass because it's going to stop X, Y, and Z. Like, it's specific. And so because I know that, I've been waiting decades to be on this charter commission. A document that can help us. We have some great things in there. But as individuals, you're out and start having these conversations, and that's just what I've been doing. I've spoken to 2 previous living mayors, just called them up in 2024. So in that, we've had more conversation with people going with the back and forth, going downtown, setting up a booth, setting up a spot, just to say, let's talk about the charter. I'm just putting what I know my faith in front of me. This charter is gonna pass. If we can just say rhetoric time, saying that they do certain things that we all know that they don't. Anyway, for your opportunities to reach that 1, 2, or 3 people. Now I know I speak as an elected official gets me in a lot of trouble at times because I'm not a true politician. But I meet it hands-on. Where is that? We all come from different backgrounds and different spaces. Pontiac is our home, and Pontiac deserves that a person is, no, we're going to pass the charter. You may not want to, you can vote no, you're one person. But we need to start meeting things head on when people and change. We've been changing. We resilient. That's what I love about Pontiac. These 1 or 2, 10 people that's around here talking about. None of them out here in the community more than anybody sitting at this dining. And so going and keep moving and motivating yourself to just trust this process.
Tail off of what Commissioner Garrett mentioned. Always think about change management, right? Any change, there's going to be your. It is all about the people in the middle, right? It is how we interact with the people in the middle, right? Because there are always going to be people who are going to blast. Oh, I think we had on the website before they said we're not voting for this. Well, they didn't come and watch these meetings. They didn't do this. And so I always say, Jose texted me actually after he's like, oh God, I'm concerned. People were out blasting the charter. I said, don't focus on them. We're never going to change their mind. Their mind will always be set that they will not vote for yes for a charter. The people's minds that we need to change are those that aren't paying attention. That just are like, oh, I didn't know that, but they aren't happy. Who's happy with how our city is operating as a whole, right? The reason that I joined this is because first and foremost, I love city government. But I want city government to run well. And for the most part, when a city government is running well, you don't have to be that engaged. Listen, our people are exhausted. Meeting every week is crazy, not just for our elected officials, but for our residents. I shouldn't have to worry every single 5 seconds that if right? I don't want to have to worry about that. That's it. We talk about mental health. Shoot, our people are struggling with mental health because we got to worry. Oh God, who's doing this and that and whatever and no, like that's one of many things. But like, I don't want to have to worry about what my government is doing. I want to know that they're doing it well and that we have the right things in place to be able to make that well. But most importantly, I think why all of us join this is because, and I think this is different than some others, is while others have done different roles. But what I heard from all my commissioners, the whole cajillion meetings that we had, and I tell you, it's hundreds of hours that we spent doing this, right, is a true commitment to the residents of the city. That is something that is profound across every single person. So whether you don't like someone else, the thing that I will note, right, is again, compromise. I can't even get a consensus with like my 4 family members on what we want for dinner. Kermit mentioned pizza, right? You try to order pizza with everybody, you're like, oh God, okay, never mind. Can we just order separate ones, right? To think about us 9 people who are all very loud, you've heard me talk for hours, we're all very passionate, okay? We're very loud. I swear to you, I had to mediate between some folks on this committee more than I have ever had to mediate in my entire life. I said, oh my God. That is the level of commitment and passion that we had to pass this charter, right? That's what it does. And so I want to highlight that because having our residents top of mind centers around we want to do what's best for the residents of this city. That was our first goal. And passion for what's doing best for our residents is what highlights what you get out of this, right? That's what I hope. My final thing that I'll say is, listen, if you hear someone saying some crap that they don't know anything about, call us. Call any of us. I will gladly. Where he just gets a call every 5 seconds. I don't care. I want this to pass as much as possible. And so I'd rather have us email us. Go find me and harass me on Facebook. I do not. And talk to us. Please. Please, please, please. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather you talk to me than vote no. I mean, I can't say that. I'd rather you talk to me than vote thinking that this is not something that's beneficial. So, anyway. That is my thoughts. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Thank Taj, our audio man, running all this stuff, and their doors open for us today. I'll say this and be brief. I wanted to say no comment, but my colleagues got me riled up. Charter. The charter in 1982 was a government first charter. This is the new constitution. Vote in favor of it. I gave up my city council seat for re-election. Revision Commission. It was so important to me to not continue years of sitting on city council where people would not pay council because they chose not to. And if we're honest with ourselves, that was not the best we could do in our city. And the bottom line is, Pontiac has lost a lot. We went through 3 emergency managers. We lost the Silver Dome. We lost our police department, our fire department. $1 billion that now we have people that are working on, still trying to get lead pipes, and I don't have any recourse to get my bridge fixed on Martin Luther King Boulevard. The charter doesn't speak to that. The charter is simply a framework for us to move forward, and what we've done in this charter that nobody's talking about is we added people to all of the major decision-making points in the charter. Yes, you might have to pay a little bit more money for a public integrity officer, but guess who that officer answers to? A citizen board. That makes a difference. Boards and commissions with actual citizens on there. The election board, who almost didn't certify the election of our current mayor because it was used in a certain way to keep people out of office because there was no citizens on the board. And so when y'all leave this meeting, when y'all watch it on Facebook or YouTube or whatever you're gonna watch it on, make sure you let people know that everything in this is to help the citizens and not to harm the citizens. I don't agree with everything in the charter, but there is nothing dangerous or harmful in the charter. Now, would I do it a different way on some of these things? Yes, but guess what? I got outvoted. But I got outvoted by people who care about the city just as much as I do. And I trust that with this charter, we can make it another 41 years. But the great part about it is we don't have to do that because we put in insight that says that people will be looking at this review. And so everybody who's saying, I want to vote no on the charter, give this charter a chance first. Because nobody in the city of Pontiac is as happy with our government as they should be, because our municipal elections have not cracked 10,000 in 20 years out of 35,000 residents that are registered to vote. Meaning that there's people who stay home under this 1982 charter and don't participate in their government. This gives you recourse if your trash is not picked up and your council person doesn't want to do something or the mayor doesn't want to do something. You have an outlet not to have to go to Channel 7, Channel 2, and Channel 4 just to get your pothole fixed. And that's what this charter does. So I'm asking everybody to support this charter, but most importantly, even if you're not going to support the charter, don't speak ill on it without reading. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at whatever time it is, 8:38.